ההשקעה שלי. מהיום ניתן למצוא את הפודקאסט שלי באפל פודקאסט, ספוטיפיי, סאונדקלאוד ויוטיוב. כל תוכנית תארח אורח חדש ואדון איתו על נושאים שקשורים לפוליטיקה, היסטוריה ואקטואליה. בפרקים בהם מארח ישראלים, התוכנית תהיה בעברית, ובפרקים בהם מארח אישים מהעולם, התוכנית תהיה באנגלית. היום מארח את הסנאטור ובנו של נשיא ברזיל, אדוארדו בולסונארו, ואדון איתו על המאבק בין ימין לשמאל בישראל, בברזיל ובעולם. Welcome to my new podcast. Starting today, you can find my podcast at Apple Podcasts, SoundCloud, Spotify, and YouTube. Each episode, I will host a different guest and discuss with him on issues related to politics, history, and current news. Episode that I will host Israelis will be in Hebrew, and episode that I will host guests from around the world will be in English. So today I'm with my good friend Eduardo Bolsonaro. I want to talk to him today about something that impacts all of us, the global battle between globalism versus nationalism, socialism versus free market and capitalism, the forces of the radical left versus the freedom-loving right. So I want to represent my friend Eduardo Bolsonaro for the Israeli public. Eduardo is a Brazilian federal congressman, lawyer, and even a federal police officer. As a member of the Chamber of Deputies, Brazil House of Representatives, Bolsonaro represents Sao Paulo, one of Brazil's largest cities, I think bigger than Israel. He also chairs the International Affairs and National Defense Committee. In the general elections of 2018, Eduardo got 1.8 million votes and was therefore elected representative for the state of Sao Paulo to serve his second term as congressman and became the most voted congressman in the history of Brazil Chambers of Deputies. He is, of course, as everybody knows, the son of Jair Bolsonaro, the president of Brazil. Eduardo Bolsonaro is one of the most important conservative leaders in Brazil. He's a warrior who fights for nationalism and right-wing causes. He opposes the socialism that has caused so much damage to Brazil and so many countries in Central America and South America. Thank you for being with me today.
It's my pleasure to be here, my friend. And you have the most beautiful name of ever, Jair.
I like me and your dad have the same name.
Yes. And I'm very glad to be here connected with my friends in Israel. And for sure, you have a friend fighting, showing to the people what is going on in Middle East. And also talking about some things that the mainstream media here sometimes forget to talk about Israel.
Yeah, I actually wanted to talk to you. Let's start with this topic. The media in Israel and the United States is very progressive, pro-socialist, anti-nationalism. I wanted to know if it's the same situation in Brazil, media-wise.
Yes, sometimes it's incredible because you do not understand very well how do they think. But if you talking about Brazil, what I can tell you, let me go back a little bit in history. For sure, almost everybody knows who is Karl Marx. I mean, the father of the communism. Yeah. And in 1917, what he saw, it was the Bolshevik, the Russian Revolution. And after that, 49, you have China, 59, you have Cuba, and all of that following the model to take the power by the force, using guns, using weapons, killing the enemies and the oppositors. Yes. But then what happened here in Brazil? Here in Brazil, in 1964, we were almost turning our country in a communist country because the president that we had at that time. So what happened in Brazil?
Like the rest of South America, almost all of South America became communist and socialist.
Yes, exactly. South America usually walk in the same page when you talk about politics, when you talk about a system of a state. And in 1964, the military people on the street asked for the militaries, and the militaries took the power. And after that, some of the left-wing people, they started to use the military. And the military 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 started to use the military. And the mil they grab the guns and start to kidnap authorities. We had here in Brazil the kidnapping of the American ambassador. We had the kidnapping of the Japanese consul and some other crimes, murders. But in the other hand, other guys, left-wing guys, they started to do a soft movement in a long term. What was that? It goes into the universities. They were following what the Italian philosopher called Antonio Gramsci. He thought that first, in the Western Hemisphere, it's very hard to take the power using the force. It's not going to take so long when you try to do that. So the best way to take the power is changing the culture. If you change the culture of the people, automatically the political power will come to you.
Yes.
So they started here during the 60s to go into the universities. And now, after some decades, they have the full control, not only the universities, but almost the full control of the press, the unions, and some other segments of the society. That's why it's so hard to fight back. Because here in Brazil, we have a problem. We have a conservative president. We elected a conservative president with no conservative mainstream media, with no conservative union, with no conservative university. So this is a very hard fight that my family and the conservatives that we have here in Brazil now. But day after day,
is it still the situation in Brazil that there's no conservative media?
Or yes, almost like no. It's not like in US. In US, they say, "Oh, I'm CNN. I follow the Democrat vision." Oh no, I'm Fox News or O1. I like the Republicans. No. You don't have it here. And the problem is they
pretend to be their radical left, but they pretend to be objective.
Yes, exactly. And here the problem is the biggest one is called Globo. There is a Globo group with newspaper, magazine, and the biggest television of Brazil. I think it's the number 4 in the world. And they are very, very against us. So we have a particular fight against this television. That's why also we have problems with, for example, Amazon. Sometimes, and usually the Europeans, they think the whole Amazon is on fire. But if you go to the Amazon, you see that's just impossible to burn the forest because it produces much more CO2, how to say the name of the gas? Dióxido de carbono.
Yeah, Carl, I know the name also in Hebrew, but the one that...
But you got it.
Yeah.
Because they say, no, the trees, where you have a tree, you have oxygen. No. The trees, they produce the oxygen, but they also consume the oxygen. Yeah. And 20% of the water that you can drink everywhere of the world is there in the Amazon forest. So it's impossible to burn the Amazon. But what happens? The mainstream media in Brazil keeps saying that the Amazon is on fire. So when you go to read the newspaper of the Le Monde in France, The Guardian, or BBC, or El País, you see that the news, they copy the news from the mainstream media in Brazil. So they have this idea. So you can feel right. How hard it is to fight against
and
this
I want
power.
To connect to what you said before about how the left is very successful in taking over all the power centers of a country. The academia, the media. This is very similar to what's happening in Israel, because in Israel, the most radical left that represent maybe 5% or 10% of the country, very socialist, very anti-national, very anti-religion, anti-Judaism. They took control of almost 100% of the media, mainstream media, and 100% of the academia. So the brainwashing, what they do is not giving information, is what they do is indoctrinating and brainwashing against the cause of their own nationality. This is what's unbelievable. In Israel, they work against the national cause, and the national interest of Israel and the Jewish people. In Brazil, they work against the national cause of Brazil. They do the same in America. And it's a big problem, you know, because the country, it's like an autoimmune disease that attacks the body from within. And Brazil is a very big country. I think that Israel can be put in Brazil maybe 100 times. You know, you can put Israel, I think, just in Sao Paulo County. And Brazil is surrounded by countries that it's not its enemies, it's its friends, at least most of the countries, I guess. Israel is surrounded, you know, in countries like Syria, ISIS, Iran, you know, countries that want to destroy it, and terrorist organizations that want to destroy it. And fighting the battle of surviving for such a small country, while you have from inside such strong bodies like the media, and like the academia that work on behalf of the enemies of Israel. This is what makes it, I think, even a more existential threat for Israel, even more than Brazil. And
Yes.
I think also something very interesting that the left in all the world is always united, you know, through this open society organizations and NGOs, global NGOs of George Soros and other entities that are connecting the left camp in all countries of the Western world and helping them help each other. And I think it's very important, for example, what we do today and other organizations to connect the conservatives of each countries to help each other out as well and support each other and
Yes,
give
they are
information.
Yes, the left for sure is far away ahead from us. Conservative, we are like babies. We are starting now. As you said, we are trying to do this kind of connection. That's also why I would start with other issues. That this week we just signed an agreement between the Knesset and the Brazilian Congress and our Foreign Affairs and National Defense Committees. That's why. That's to we be closer. So, yeah. For example, using this tool that we have now, when you have any kind of issue about Israel in my committee, I can ask the committee in the Knesset what is really going on in Israel about any kind of conflict that you have in your region. So I don't need anymore the information that come from the mainstream media, because usually it's not information, as you said, very right, that they try to doctrinate, and I'm very happy with that. And going a little bit back, you said something very interesting. I also cannot understand how someone from Israel can be against your own people.
Oh, you'll be surprised. Brazil,
I
realize Jews are very good with self-hatred.
Yeah, and these are very. I have a story that talks a little bit about it. On 2016, I was in my second year as a congressman here in Brazil. And I was talking with a journalist inside of the Congress about the Nazism, okay? And then at some point, she told me that, but look, the policies of Benjamin Netanyahu, he's doing the same of the Nazis. And I said, what? The prime minister of Israel is doing the same policy of Hitler?
They're insane.
I mean, is he killing people? Is he doing the Holocaust part 2? Like, yeah. No way to you I was listen told, that and don't get shocked.
I was called by them.
The interview just stopped it. I said, okay, sorry. I said, okay, that's enough. Thank you very much. I have to go. But it's they are insane. They live in another reality. They live in another reality for sure.
Yeah, they hate their own people and they hate their own religion. They hate their own culture. And this is a big problem. You know, I was called by the left in Israel so many times a Nazi or a neo-Nazi. And, you know, all of my grandfather families is from Poland, and they were all murdered by the Nazis. And they called me a Nazi, you know, a neo-Nazi. Like this is what they call for anybody who's conservative that they disagree with. They call him a Nazi, a racist, a fascist, and this is how they stop the argument, because you don't need to argue and give data and give opinions to a Nazi or a fascist. You just say, you're a Nazi, you're a fascist, so I don't need to talk to you. I don't need to explain my opinions. I don't need to give facts. That's it. And this is how they stop the arguments. The right, when they're arguing with the left, they're always, this is something I see all the time when I'm arguing with left people. I give facts, historical facts, statistics, reasonable, examples from other cases in the world, etc. They never give this facts. They always give, this very childish slogans, and that's it. They give you a slogan, and they just say, "Oh, so you want all these people who's your enemy to be dead? You want this, you want that? You're a Nazi and you're racist, and that's it." They don't try to argue with you and reason with you, and they are used to it because they don't need to. They control all the power of the state, whether, as we said, the academia, the media, that speak for their propaganda, so they don't need to think about arguments when they're talking about a conservative. So that's a big problem. But I want to talk to you. We were talking about how the situation was in Brazil before your father was elected, and your father made a huge revolution in Brazil. When it comes to foreign policy, like the relations with Israel, and when it comes to domestic policy. Your father won the presidency as part of the Brazilian conservative movement, fighting back over decades of socialist rule. So how did he change international relations, like with Israel, and how did it change internal affairs in Brazil?
Yeah, this is a unique history, I think, around the world. Sometimes I do some kind of comparison between Jair Bolsonaro and Donald Trump. But
wait, did you call him the Trump of the tropics, right?
Yes, yes. And they tried. Sometimes you have some people that say that, trying to say that, come on, Bolsonaro, you are so small, you're so little, you are the Trump of the tropics. And I said, okay, I take this nickname. For me, it's a proud to have this kind of comparison with Trump. He's a great guy,
Yeah.
So the left guy, the left wings, they get even angrier,
even more crazy.
And it talks a little bit, going to what you're commenting before, Yair. That's why our society is so polarized. You don't have any more debates. If they don't agree with you, they say that you are a Nazi, fascist, and whatever. So my advice for you is that do not try to have a normal debate with this kind of people. Some people, you can even show the arguments and convince them. But you have some other that they have a kind of sickness that don't waste your time trying to tell them that they are wrong and trying to show the truth, and just forget about it. But going back, what happened in Brazil? So we were coming here for decades from socialism. I can say in general, during the 90s, we had social democrats on the power. And after that, in the first decade of the 2000s, we had Lula da Silva and then Dilma Rousseff, both from the Labour Party, extremely left.
Yes, almost communist, right?
Yes,
with their views.
Communists, they love Fidel Castro, they support Chavez, and they support Maduro in Venezuela. We have a public bank here that they were using to send money from the Brazilians to build port in Cuba, subway in Caracas, hydroelectric in Nicaragua, and all the other friends. So you send the money, you say that you are lending the money, and they don't pay back. Really, Brazil, we lost, I don't know how many billions of dollars doing this kind of thing, helping other
The economy of
presidents.
Brazil was at ruins.
Yes, yes. And the economy went down, not only because of that, also because so much huge corruption scandals. You don't have any more scandals in Brazil during at that time. You don't have scandals about millions of dollars. You have scandals of billions of dollars. And so people get so much angry with that, they revolted. And what happened? We were in a time here in Brazil that the access of the internet was increasing. So almost everybody was buying a smartphone. And then when the media was talking that Jair Bolsonaro was a racist, xenophobic, homophobic, and all of that, in internet, usually regular people, normal people, was looking by their smartphones that the reality is not like that. And then they start to think, man, what Jair Bolsonaro is talking is right. And Jair Bolsonaro was a congressman like since the 90s, for a long time, a congressman that no one were listening to Jair Bolsonaro.
And when the internet started to rise up, and social networks, he finally had the opportunity to talk directly to the people above the head of the mainstream media that would have censored him otherwise.
Yes. And then he was visiting Brazil, and every airport that he arrived at, you have a crowd waiting for him. And in the middle of the crowd is very clear. If you access the YouTube, you're going to see that, Yair, that you have people holding two flags, the Brazilian flag and the flag of Israel. Christians here, especially the evangelicals, they support a lot Israel. The idea of the movement,
I heard that they
about the embassy,
in Sao Paulo,
it's
they
coming
built,
from...
first of all, but I heard also that the evangelical Christians in Sao Paulo built an exact replica of the temple in Jerusalem from the time of the Bible.
Yes.
And it's the only one in the world. And this is unbelievable. I really want to visit there one day.
If you come here, it'd be my honor to go there with you.
Since your father took office, the relations between Israel and Brazil changed in 180 degrees. Before your father was the president, Brazil was very hostile to Israel and very hostile to the United States as well. And since your father took office, Brazil became one of the closest allies of Israel. How is your father Christian faith plays a role in his foreign policy towards Israel?
Mm-hmm. As my father got elected, not spending even $1 million with a huge popular support, he had independence enough to do whatever he wants. So one of the things that he made is changing 180 degrees, as you said, our foreign affairs relation. There is no reason we keep together with a dictatorship in Venezuela or in Cuba, or supporting these kind of people everywhere in the world.
Or
and
Iran.
Israel, yes, Iran, very, very, very sensitive and very dangerous issue. And Israel was always there. You were always with the open arms to hug Brazil.
Yes.
So we enjoyed this opportunity. And also, after I have a daughter of 10 years old, Laura. After Laura born, my father even how can I say, he got even more Christian, if I can say that. And the first lady here, his wife, she is really also a very strong evangelic. And this kind of relation, it converges. It goes in the same way to respect Israel. It's just respect. What Lula da Silva made, that he went to Israel and take some flowers and went to the Yasser Arafat's tomb and put it there, and do not respect all the other religious symbols in Israel.
Also, it's also important for international viewers to understand that Yasser Arafat is the killed the most Jews ever since World War II. He murdered, he's responsible for the murder of countless of Jewish children, Israeli children, women, etc. He was a mass murderer, so that's also something very important to put in the
so we not only we, I mean me, my father, and my family, but all the Brazilians, we would like to see foreign affairs with nice countries. What is nice countries? Countries that respect women, countries where you have democracy, countries where you have freedom to speech, and all of these kinds of issues. So Jair Bolsonaro said during the campaign a lot about not only Israel, but also Japan, United States, and some of other countries that we would be closer. Not only
and Israel and Brazil and America also share a common civilization and common values of as Judeo-Christian civilization and roots. So you know the Bible, it's the most important book and life guide for all of our people, whether it's Christians and Jews. And Jerusalem is the holy city for Jews and Christian, and Israel is the Holy Land for Jews and Christians. So we have a lot of common, not only common interests, but common values as well, besides being democratic values and free democratic countries and free countries. And also it's important, it's interesting that you said that in your dad's campaign rallies, you saw all the Israeli flags next to the Brazilian flags. And we met at your father's inauguration. And I saw there all the big crowds that came for the inaugurations. Also, the two flags I saw is the flags of Brazil and the flag of Israel. That was very.
And this is not something organized yet. They just know that. You have a very famous video that your father, when he stopped the car right before enter in the Foreign Affairs Ministry, the crowd got crazy with him. He was saying hello to the people, and people was screaming
Israel,
like a rock star.
Yeah, you know who took this video? I took this video. I took this video.
Oh, you took the video. So, it's like me. Sometimes my father, he's arriving in the airports and I'm there doing the videos.
I take the behind the scenes. That's also.
But you see,
that was a very moving event.
Only to finish, only to end with the answer. So Jair Bolsonaro, what he's doing? He's telling the world that it's possible to get together close of Israel and close of the Arab countries. You don't have to choose one or other. So it's pretty much the same policy that Donald Trump and also Jair Kushner, who is someone that I admire a lot, what they are doing. They are talking with the Arab countries and they are talking with Israel. The problem of the Middle East is not Israel. You have some other threats and so much other important issues that they are realizing that you have much more, you earn much more if you work together with Israel than if you turn Israel as your enemy.
And also we have a common threat, which is Iran, that threatening to nuke both Israel and the Gulf states. They're openly saying it, that they want to destroy the Gulf states and they want to destroy Israel, the Arab states. And you have a threat of radical Islamism, whether it's Sunni like ISIS or Shia like Hezbollah, and it's a big threat for Israel. Like for Israel through Gaza with Hamas and Hezbollah, but it's also a big threat for the Arab world. You know, like Israel is being a victim of radical Islam from Gaza and control Gaza Hamas that sends thousands of missiles on civilian population in Israel. But it's not only our problem, because the same radical Islamists are shooting rockets on Saudi Arabia and on even the UAE. So you know it's a alliance of interests that a lot of both sides can benefit economically, now Israel and the UAE signed the peace agreement in the White House, and also Bahrain. I was there last week in the White House, and it was very moving and historic event. Thank you. It was unbelievable. Nice. It was something, something that will be remembered for centuries, I think.
And by the way, tonight I'm going to the birthday party of the ambassador of Bahrain, Brazil.
Well, send him warm regards from me and from Israel. And it was really historic. Of course, the foreign minister of Bahrain and UAE were there. And this is from the inauguration. No, this is not from the
no. This is
from the campaign.
Yeah, probably the campaign or before the campaign. I don't know exactly what airport is that, but they are right in front of the airport, and both flags together.
It's also very important for me to state that the same way that the Brazilian people love Israel, the Israeli people love Brazil. It's a dream for every Israeli to go to Rio de Janeiro, to the beach there, to the carnival. So, the Israeli people admire the spirit of Brazilians, the joy of life of Brazilians. And, I think there's a lot of similarities between Israelis and Brazilians. We're very non-official. We're very warm. We're very, wearing flip-flops and shorts, not like,
we like to travel.
Yeah, we like to travel. Well, I wanted to ask you about another issue. I see you said that your father has been elected a lot because of the power of social networks and the fact that he can speak directly to the Brazilian people without the traditional mainstream media censoring him. And it's very similar with my father in Israel. He won one election after another. We just had 3 this year, by the way. Israel, Israeli politics, I think, is even crazier than Brazilian politics. And one of the main reasons he was able to win is because the Israeli media is a completely North Korean style socialist communist propaganda. So there's no way to convince them. But he talked directly to the Israeli people on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter. And now we see a phenomenon that started to be very worrying in recent time, that the social networks are starting to censor conservatives in Israel, in America, in Brazil. More and more. I was blocked several times from Facebook for hate speech, and I think you were blocked for a while in Twitter as well.
All the medias, I think only YouTube didn't block me.
Oh. Now you told them YouTube, so now they're gonna make sure to block you there too.
But yes, this is something real. Yeah. We discuss here about strategies we can't depend only the social media. I think the social media one day it's going to end for conservative politicians. And what you told is right. Here in Brazil, for example, less than 1% of my posts in Instagram, they are sent to people that do not follow me. So every time that I post on Instagram, I'm talking only with my public, Yes. So it's but it's still I'm still increasing on Instagram. On Twitter, I'm going a little bit up, a little bit down, a little bit up, a little bit down. And it's a very strange movement.
We see that the trend in all the Western world is to shadow ban and to suppress conservative opinions and voice in all social networks. What do you think is the solution for conservatives around the world to overcome this big threat for free speech?
This is a very hard question. I think the best solution it would be create a platform that could support us or at least do not block us. But this is a very hard question. Here in Brazil, we are facing some law projects that they try to institutionalize the censorship of the conservatives. So they go to the Congress with bills asking to control the internet. But in the end of the day, we know that the intention is to control and censorship the conservatives.
Of course.
So now here we are fighting back to keep the social media how they are nowadays. See how hard this
It's the same
fight.
in Israel. The left wanted to so-called regulate and do laws about hate speech. And hate speech is not really hate speech, is only a code word for conservative. Because, you know, I was you know, reporting to Facebook and Twitter and Instagram so many posts that call deliberately to murder me. Just, you know, posts that say, people that say, you know, you need to stab me with a knife and stuff like that. And Facebook got back to me and say, oh, it doesn't violate our community standards, you know.
Yes.
And then you see conservatives being blocked for saying, you know, the most moderate, you know, things that you can imagine.
But if you do the opposite, if you, Yair, say that's necessary to stab someone from the left, they're going to block you because hate speech.
You know, that's fine. But the problem is that they block conservatives for hate speech, not for saying, I want to stab someone, just to saying, oh, I don't like this person. I think this person needs to quit his job. You know, and they block you for hate speech and for inciting violence. That's the problem. So,
and Twitter is even worse, because Twitter, when they block you, when they delete a post and when they delete a tweet that you made, they do not tell you what tweet you made. They are deleting. Twitter for me is the worst, and they already deleted posts from President Jair Bolsonaro and from President Trump. They are really like nonsense about trying. I don't know what the idea that they have of the perfect world or what they want to do, but this is a problem. Every time that you have someone that think that, oh, this is the perfect world, people is going to live like this, they are going to have this kind of comfortable life and this and that. Yes. When you have this idea and try to apply it to any kind of society, it always fails.
Yeah,
because there is something
this is what the communists try to do all over the world, in South America, in Asia, in Europe, and the result was 110 people killed because of communism. Because they seek
in less than 1 century
communism to create a perfect utopian world. So not only they didn't create utopia, you know, North Korea is not so much utopia. Also, Cuba at the time of Castro was not exactly utopia. Venezuela at the time of, right now, Venezuela, look what happened in Venezuela. It used to be one of the wealthiest countries in the world. And now people fleeing from Venezuela, it's, you know, they don't have food for basic food. They don't even have money for toilet paper. I'm talking before the time of the pandemic, of the corona. Before they were collapsing, although they have the most oil resources in the world. So you see
more than Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, more than Saudi Arabia. So you see that socialism.
But every time that you think that you have, I developed here the perfect society, when you apply it in any kind of society, it always fails, because they do not consider the people.
Yes.
I mean, the individual.
Human nature.
Yes. For example, if you give me $100, I don't know, I'm going to buy a television. If I give $100 for you, maybe you're going to invest in the stock market. I don't know. And they do not consider it. They think that everybody is the same. All the black people think the same. All the gays think the same. And and they start to share the society in segments.
Yes.
And after they say, oh, you are women and you are feminists. Okay, you have someone to represent you. You have this congressman here that's going to represent you. Oh, no, you are black. You have here a congressman that defend the blacks.
Yes.
But sometimes, usually, the guy who is supposed to defend the blacks, they don't take right policies to all the blacks. I mean, you can't generalize everybody because
they look on social engineer, and they call themselves liberals, but actually the conservatives are the liberals. We believe that every person should have as much as freedom, whether it's economical, the government should not interfere in the economy of people and their, the financial decision less as possible. We believe that the country should not interfere how people raise their children and how, societies work. Less government, better for us. And they believe in more government, more deciding for people how to live, what to think, how to spend their money on high taxes, by the way, always, how to what is okay to say, what is not okay to say. And then they call themselves liberals, but actually they're the real fascists. They're the real totalitarian.
Yes.
They want, their societies where they control without any boundaries is North Korea. North Korea is the most left country, left-wing country in the world. This is when the left have total control with no checks and balances, with nothing to balance them. So you get North Korea, you get Soviet Union, you get countries like that, you get Che Guevara. This is what you get.
Yes. And you know why they do not talk bad things about Venezuela nowadays? Because they think the violence that is going on in Venezuela right now, they think is just a phase before the perfect society. So it's necessary to kill the conservative, the oppositors, and then who survive, the communists, the socialists, they organize the society somehow. And then they have the full control of the society, as happened nowadays in North Korea or in Cuba. Yes. This is the perfect society for the left wing.
Yes. So before we have to go, I want one last question. As the son of a prime minister of Israel, and I'm asking you as the son of the president of Brazil, what do you think is the pressures of being the son of the world leader, and what is also the benefits? What is the what is the?
You don't have that much benefits.
No, unless you're a son of a liberal, unless you're a son of a left-wing leader, and then you have a lot of benefits. But and then all the media hail you and praise you. But what do you say?
The son of a...
Since you became the son of the president, I think 2 years ago. How did your life change?
Nowadays is very hard. For example, I'm very happy because when I get out of my house, if I go to a restaurant or take a plane, people come to me, and first, mainly to take pictures, what make me happy. But also, I'm a congressman from the state of São Paulo. I mean, I do the federal laws for the whole Brazil, but who elect me is the people from the state of São Paulo. And people bring to me problems from everywhere in Brazil, a lot of advices, a lot of things. So it's you don't have a regular life. For example, I don't go to the shopping with my wife and buy some stuff for my daughter.
Yeah,
it's not going to happen. I mean, I go and I do that, but we know that we are going to stop sometimes, taking some pictures, talk with people. Take pictures make me happy. This is the easiest part. And I like to do that, to be honest. But you have always to pay attention. For example, you can't go out and drink that much because someone can take a picture of you. So you lose kind of your freedom. And you always have to pay attention because everywhere can appear someone trying to do some bad things against you. This is also another thing. I started to work with personal security. I don't go out from my house at least with more of 2 or 3 or 4 security policemen to do my security, and also of my wife. So this thing, you lose kind of your freedom. But on the other hand, I'm very happy because when you go to the street, people usually, they like you, they come to support you, they say, I'm praying for you, don't care about the media, keep it going on and changing Brazil, support Israel, US, and all of that, But
something interesting for me,
life changed a lot.
For me, everywhere I go in Israel, I get a lot of love from the people, they saying to me, good for you, carry on your fight. Everywhere, Jerusalem in the north, in the south. Only when I'm in Tel Aviv, Tel Aviv is like our New York, or the center of the most progressive. So, I get, sometimes bad looks, but, the rest of the real Israel is not Tel Aviv the same way that the real America is not New York or LA. The real America is, what is called Middle America, and the real Israel is the North. Exactly, yeah. So in Israel, our Texas, is the Galilee, the South, the Jerusalem, everywhere outside of Tel Aviv is the real Israel.
And something fun, only to add, something that is very funny. Sometimes people come to me and say, Eduardo, keep going. We are supporting you. I know that some half of the Brazil, they hate you, and probably they come to you talking bad things. And I say, no, usually 90% of the people come to me talking good things. And usually when someone say that I'm a fascist, they say that like 100 meters away. When they cross to me and they are 100 meters far away from me, they say, hey, Eduardo, you're a fascist. And start to run away.
They don't have the guts to say it in your face, huh?
No, yeah.
This is how they are. Yeah. So,
especially because they know that I carry a
gun. And have you been treated very like, have the media in Brazil started to pick up on you since you became the son of the president? The liberal media in Brazil.
Yes, they always look the things by the worst vision that they can do. But it's very, what do we do? We use the internet to show that the media is not right.
Yeah.
So when you show to the people that, see, the television is showing you this, and I'm telling you this.
Exactly.
Take whatever you want. So it's easier to us because day after day, more and more people come to our site if you explain to them. And but the media, yes, they go behind, they start investigations to see how much I paid my apartment, how much I use of public money, even if I'm spending my own salary. Oh, he's spending on this, on that. So they are always doing this.
Yeah.
I don't, but I control my mind, and I don't let it to infect my mind or my environment here at home. So when I'm together with my wife or with my friends, I just don't care about it. And this is something that is from the work. When I'm at work, I handle this, I take care of it. When I'm out of it, okay, I turn it off and I go to the beach and I surf and, go to the church. And for me, this is what makes me happy.
So they try to do character assassination for both of us,
yes.
the media.
Reputation murders.
And my way, and I think it's also what I did is, I've been the son of the prime minister for 13 years. And they've been attacking me and, doing character assassination for me year after year after year. And then at one point, and I was always quiet, I never had active social media, I never had interviews, nobody even knew my voice. Nobody ever saw me on video. And still they were doing all this.
I didn't know you for a couple of weeks ago from now. I didn't know you.
So what happened is at one point I decided, if they're doing it anyway, let me fight back and and I opened a public Facebook account. I opened in Twitter, Instagram, and and when they're doing bad things about me, I first of all post the truth and show my side, which is, I know which is the truth, and also exposing them, exposing the journalists, exposing the media channels for how corrupt they are and how evil they are and how liars they are. And, and this is the only way to fight. And this is why I start opening my podcast to show, to speak the truth, to give the truth a voice, and to give all the majority of conservatives of Israel voice
very
in
nice.
Israel. And I am so happy for having you as my first guest. And I hope we'll have more shows to come. And I admire your work. You're doing a terrific job for the Brazilian people.
Do not end the interview. Keep talking. Let's go. I have at least 20 more minutes. But what you're saying, Jair, is pretty much the same feeling that I had that makes me enter in politics. During the university, when I was 20, 22, 23 years old, I was used to say that I would never enter in politics. So what happened? When I got my degree and I became a lawyer, and then from the federal police, and my first service was on the border between Brazil and Bolivia. At that point, in 2010, I started to pay more attention about politics and about what is going on with my father, because the mainstream media was starting to attack him so much, especially talking that he's homophobic and racist. And after 4 years, I asked my father and say, Father, don't you support, would you like to support me in the campaign to I became a politician, a congressman in São Paulo, because I was in São Paulo in 2014. And my father said, okay, I support you. He got really happy. But the first feeling that I had to become a congressman is to be together with my father at the same fight, side by side. And nowadays I realize that I would never have a calm life, a regular life, having a father as a conservative president. So it's, I think we have almost the same feeling when you talk why you are opening your podcast and why I became a congressman. And as you see, the most voted ever congressman in the history of Brazil. I think it shows a little bit what is going on here.
Yeah, and I think what the voters in Sao Paulo like about your attitude is that is, you know, saying all the truth in the face without being politically correct, talking about the real problems of the citizens and not, you know, what is, you know, what the media expect you to talk about. So so I think because my show, it won't be that long, I think you know, not to keep people you know, we want the people to wait for the next time that we're gonna have a show. And God willing, we're gonna talk very soon. I hope after the pandemic is over, after there will be a vaccine. And, you know, the best scientists in Israel and Brazil and America are working right now on finding a cure for this disease. And, you know, our people is having very tough time in Brazil, in Israel, all over the world. Not a single country in the world have not been devastated by this pandemic, horrible pandemic that haven't been in human history for the last 100 years. But the hope that in the end of the tunnel, that it will be over and we will be able to recover our societies and our countries, because, you know, we're doing the right policies. And you know, once the pandemic is over, we will be able to recover. While with other world leaders might not be, you know, it's also a question how you recover your country after there's a vaccine, and you need the right guy to be in charge. So this is what I hope will happen, and I have no doubts that my father and your father will navigate our country through these difficult times to safer shores and overcome the pandemic. So I want to thank you, Eduardo, so much for being in my first show. You know, they saying sometimes you're saving best for last, so I saved the best for the beginning.
Toda Rabba. And I hope to go back to Israel soon. And I'm always talking that next year, I think it will be even a greater year to our countries. We keep going with the ties, with the relationship, closer and closer. And I had the opportunity this week when I was talking to, at the ceremony that we signed both documents between the Knesset and the Brazilian Congress, that thank you about the help that you send with the IDF troops to Brumadinho, a tragedy that we had last year. And Benjamin Netanyahu sent almost in the same day support to us here. Yeah. I also thank the ambassador of Israel in Brazil, which is probably the most the activist ambassador that we have here in Brazil, Yossi Shelley, that is always doing Yeah, he's doing a great job doing this kind of connection. And I think we are going to do great next year. We are going to recover faster than people think. So, toda rabá, shalom, shana
Thank you
tova.
Obrigado. Thank you so much.
De nada. Bacachá.
See you next time. Thank you.
Tchau, tchau.